Oh, hello! My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. So this is a relatively quick video today and kind of a little bit of a recap, but I got the idea from this from watching the same idea, not a similar video, the same video, from Ash Hart Books. Now, if you've never watched her before, now she's primarily a romance reader, so that I know is not for everyone, but she is just the sweetest. She has such a sweet spirit, and I enjoy her videos, but she, I guess, had seen other people doing this idea and it just hadn't shown up in my feed. What idea is that, you may be asking? It's to essentially look at the first quarter of 2018 and kind of say like what the best books I read were. And the reason I was drawn to this idea is one, I just think it's interesting. I would like to see more people doing this video. I've started searching them out now and I enjoy it. But two, it's going to be so helpful for me at the end of the year to have been doing this throughout the year, because then I can just like say, hey, what were the books that made it into those videos, and then I can just narrow down my top picks from there. So I decided to do this by which books had gotten either a 6 or 7 on my scale, which is a 5-star on Goodreads, and I discovered I only had 7 of those. So I have read 48 new books in the months of January, February, and March of this year. I'm not including any of my Project Poirot rereads because I would have more higher rated books if I did that, but I'm not including those. So these are only the new books I read. So of those 48, 7 of them got 5 stars. So gosh, what is that percentage? Something like roughly 1/7. So whatever that is of my books got a 5-star. This broke down to have 3 mysteries in it, which makes sense given how many mysteries I read in March, 2 kind of fantasy type books, and 2 nonfiction books. So let's start with the fantasy because those are the ones I have in physical form, and we'll go from there. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is the Hazlewood. Now, I did a yay or nay review on this, and I would give this a 6 out of 7 on my scale, which is a 5-star on Goodreads. Actually, none of the books I'm talking about got the 7 of 7 on my scale, which is an all-time favorite, but 6 of 7 on my scale, 5-star on Goodreads, means that it's a favorite of the year, and I definitely feel that way about this book. I know that this is a little bit controversial because I think not everybody really loved this book, but I think the mistake is that they marketed this as YA, and it is not YA in my opinion. It is, as I said in that review, I think a Bildun's Roman with fantastical elements. This is basically a really dark fairy tale retelling, and the main character, the protagonist, is not particularly likable, which I think put people off. I also think that they oversold how much fantasy there is in this, because really most of this is like a mystery or like kind of on the run with supernatural elements. You only really get the portal fantasy in the last like third of this book. So I think that's some of the reasons why people didn't connect with this, is basically because I don't think they did a great job of describing to people what it is. But I think if you put those expectations to the side, and again, I'm not blaming people because like that's the publisher's fault for not doing a better job of making people's expectations clear. But I think if you put that to the side, this is just a really good book. It's really well written, I think, and it's interesting. I will say that I'm going to keep this, I still stand by this being a 5-star. When I found out that this is actually the first in a series, it does knock down my opinion of it a little bit, because I actually love the ending of this book as just a final ending to this story. So I'm guessing I'm not gonna love the sequels to this book as much as I love this book, but I probably will continue to read in the series. And again, I really do recommend this if you like dark fairy tales, if you're a fan of Angela Carter, for instance, and if you like the idea of sort of like a Bildun's Roman with fantastical elements to it. The other fantasy is an entirely unoriginal pick, which is Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. I picked this up because first as an ebook, and then I went back and got a physical copy because of how much hype this has been getting on YouTube and just in general. Seanan McGuire was always someone whose work I wanted to try. I struck out with, I think it was like something about Armageddon in the title. I tried to read it and couldn't quite connect, but I've always heard such good things about her that I've always, I wanted to find something to try from her that I thought I'd have a good chance of liking, and I fucking love this. This is so good. Again, portal fantasy. This is, I think, playing with those conventions in a super interesting way, really well written, I think, and I'm just so glad that she's embracing the short novel. People talk about this as a novella. It is 150 pages, 169 pages. I think of a novella as between 100 and 150, so I actually would probably call this a short novel, and I love the idea that people are embracing that, because I think that short novels are awesome. Like, they're a great way, I think, to get people into reading who are intimidated by something longer, especially in fantasy. There's so many long books that I think this is a great, you know, example of something shorter, and I just love the hell out of this. I have the other 2 books in the series that have come out so far, and I'm hoping I'll get to that sometime this month, and I really, really enjoyed this book, and I thought it was really good. So again, 5 out of 5 on Goodreads, 6 out of 7 on my scale. Okay, moving into the mystery category. I'm not going to linger on these too long just because I have talked about them so much in other videos, particularly in March, since it was about a March Mystery Madness. It was all about mysteries in March. I've read, I want to say 16 books of the In Death series. Of those 16, I think I've given 3 5 stars, and 2 of those I read this year so far. So the first one was, I believe, Reunion in Death, and then the second one was Imitation in Death. And I just thought both of them were exemplary entries in popular genre fiction, and it being done well, done in a way that I think actually does have like some metaphorical significance and gets into bigger questions, and allows that to be woven into the kind of plot engine. So I thought thematically both of these were very interesting books and just well written, and I want people to celebrate well done popular fiction, because it's not as easy as people talk about. Like, the volume of terrible popular fiction belies the fact that it is not easy to just write a bestseller. In terms of, like, I think that sometimes that can diminish people's respect for the author. I think J.D. Robb / Nora Roberts definitely suffers from that, because the more, I was always sort of skeptical of her, the more I've read of her, I just have such appreciation for how clear her prose is, how consistently good her plotting is, and how she is able to have not like crazy unique characters, but I think she does her characterization really well, and she, I think, goes places in popular fiction that you might not always expect someone to go. So, like, I really have an appreciation for her, and I think it's opened my own mind to the fact that there may be other popular fiction authors out there that maybe I haven't given a fair shake to. But anyway, all that to say, these were 2 great entries in that series. It's one I continue to read, continue to enjoy. I have a couple of them out from the library right now that I want to read. And yeah, they were great entries. So there you go. There's my little defense, in defense of good popular fiction. There you go. The other mystery-ish related thing, which is actually nonfiction, but I'm just gonna put it in with the mystery grouping because it is true crime, and that is I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. I also have a yay or nay review on that I'll link up in the cards. It was just a fantastic book. As I said in that review, I do think it's a very interesting blend between true crime and memoir, and I do think that it has an extra air of sort of like pathos just because the author did pass away before this book was published, but it's just beautifully written. It's a very interesting story that I had never heard of before, and it made me think, it made me reflect. It and Imitation in Death sent me down my, like, what does it mean for me to read mysteries ethically whole conundrum. So anyway, I just enjoyed the hell out of this. Again, as with all these, a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads, a 6 out of 7 on my scale. And then finally, I had 2 nonfiction picks as well, even though I'll Be Gone in the Dark is also nonfiction, but just, you know, totally nonfiction, not really a genre for either of these. The first one is Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin. Now, I've been kind of on a Gretchen Rubin backlist binge. I started with The Four Tendencies because I'd seen it on a couple of lists of like best like businessy type of books, and it's not strictly business, but it's kind of like productivity adjacent because it's talking about people's personality types and like how to maximize, like how to set up your life to lean into your personality type. And she sort of breaks it down as how do you respond to external and internal motivations. And it was just really helpful language for me. Like, it's not, I don't think it's scientific or anything, but it had descriptive power for me at least. And I really enjoyed that. So I kept going with some of her other books. I'm currently on her original book, The Happiness Project. I finally got that from the library. So I've been, reading all of her backlist, and my favorite of the ones that I've read was Better Than Before, because I am a sucker for like productivity and like habit things in nonfiction. So I really like books about like how to, you know, form good habits, like what is it, like how to set up your life to be more, I don't know, like to lean into, to make space for the things that are important to you and that you enjoy while taking care of your responsibilities. Like that genre of kind of business slash nonfiction slash whatever books I always really enjoy. Like I really love The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, but I actually think I like Better Than Before even better than that book because I think it's more approachable. It's one that I would definitely recommend to people interested in like thinking about how to do habit formation, because it's written as sort of a memoir. Like she has her life and voice is very present in the books and in all of her books. But I think she does a good job of kind of talking about, again, the different personality types and like how that might impact your ability to form the habits you're trying to form. Anyway, I just really enjoyed it, and it's not going to be for everyone, but for me, it had a lot of descriptive power. I got a lot of really interesting kind of like ideas about ways I could kind of restructure how I'm doing things, and yeah, I just thought it was well written and really enjoyable. And then finally for nonfiction, this is no surprise. If you watched my channel at all last year, you know how much I was obsessed with Roxane Gay's Hunger, and this year I read Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay, and not as obsessed with it. Like Hunger is a 7 out of 7 on my scale, and this is a 6 out of 7 on my scale, so not like as obsessed with this book, but it was just so good. I love Roxane Gay's voice, and I was realizing the other day because somebody asked me like offhandedly like, oh, like, well, who would you say some of your like most influential sort of like feminist thinkers are? And I realized that aside from Dorothy Sayers, Roxane Gay might be like right up behind her, because I think her and like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, because I think that they embody, first of all, there's like an intersectional element to their thinking and musings in their essays, which I really appreciate, because I think it contextualizes some of the experiences I have as a woman, as a white woman, in contrast to a woman of color, and kind of being able to parse out what types of like discrimination and oppression have to do with like being a woman versus being a person of color. So I think that's always kind of an interesting interplay to examine. But I just think both of them have really like practical approaches to feminism, and I really appreciate that. And the same with Dorothy Sayers. I really like those types of thinkers who have a level of sort of like pragmatism to what they're talking about, and, you know, I think don't have a kind of off-putting idealism that sometimes that writing can kind of lean into. But even aside from all of her like feminist thought, of which there's a lot, and it is excellent, and I can't wait to read the new book about like rape culture. That's gonna be amazing. She's editing a collection of essays that I am so excited for next month. So even aside from that, just her like pop culture analysis in this book I found super enjoyable. I think I said this in my wrap up for March, but I love highbrow critique of lowbrow culture. Like, I'm obsessed with that. That's why I've always really enjoyed the Culture Gabfest at Slate, because like you've got like Stephen Metcalf, who is such like a East Coast liberal elite like thinker. He's like, I mean, I enjoy him, but like sometimes he's so up his own ass, and like he's such a stereotype. I say that with love. I really enjoy him. But listening to him talk about like Terminator or like Iron Man or like Beyonce or Taylor Swift or whatever is so enjoyable to me. Like, I just love that entire genre. So I was always gonna love this collection for that reason, because it's a lot of like highbrow thinking about lowbrow things. So anyway, all that to say, Bad Feminist is awesome, and I really enjoyed that collection of essays. So yeah, those are the best books that I read in the first quarter of 2018. Obviously, these are all things I would recommend, so if any of this sounded appealing to you, I would certainly encourage you to pick any of these up, either at your local bookstore or at your local library. And if you're ever wondering like how my reading's going, I definitely encourage you to follow me on Goodreads, either like my reviews or be my friend. I like making new friends on Goodreads. I accept everyone. I've got that information listed below. I'm Books Like Whoa on there. And yeah, like I'm pretty consistent about trying to make sure I'm doing ratings and kind of getting better, but trying to put like at least a couple sentences down about what I think about things. So if you're ever curious how my reading's going at any given moment, you can look there. Aside from that though, I am gonna keep doing, I always do my monthly wrap-ups, my what I'm reading right nows, and then I'm also, I think I'm gonna start doing these quarterly, like, hey, what are the best things that I've read so far this year? Just because I think any kinds of wrap-ups are fun. I enjoy watching them, and it's fun for me because I like kind of reflecting on like, oh yeah, what I kind of enjoyed figuring out what were the best books that I've read so far this year. So it's been a very good reading year so far. Here's hoping it continues that way. But yeah, I think that will do it. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below. And I think that will do it. I hope you're having a really great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!